This is the continual evolution of the East Coast beat. Pale is the night. At 51, I spend time stretching my hands to heaven, and I breathe. With such sweetness offered in silence, without politeness, without intention, almost as though a small scandal would be fine. I am simply marked, wearing a pendant of a saint, and I ask again, who are you? And I am silence is the answer. I am the answer to your question. There is nothing left but the veil. How much do we actually see in this world? How much do we actually know? I hear people speak that we block out 85, 95% of our world. 85 to 95% of what we can feel and see and hear and taste and touch, we don't, on the average. So we concentrate on certain things, but what can't we see? Like I said at one point, Jimi Hendrix said he could see his music in colors. I can't do that, but other people can. I think Billie Eilish can do the same. So what else is there to being just man? What else is there besides the paleness of night, the softness of the breeze? To know that the river runs strong, through the valley. What is there to life? I mean, if we were still farmers, it would be the rain, it would be the sun, it would be, the lack of locusts. These things would make sense to us. But in our daily modern lives, how are we to understand that we must surpass what we consider success? When we're kids, you want simple things. You want the new toy, you want the new shoes, you want the new pizza at the cafeteria, you want new things. And then when you get to be older, you come to a realization of what you want. And we always want. It's not unnatural to want. But at a certain point, you develop a taste for want in this life. And you go through life, and some people like pizza, and some people like burgers, and some people like Ford, and some people like Chevy, and some people can give a shit less about all that. If I can't roll it and smoke it or fucking snort it up my nose, I can give a fuck less about any of this. You know what I'm saying? I'm just gonna sit in the fucking park and, hold my hand out all day until someone fills it with food, drugs, money, ass, whatever else gets passed along. You know what I'm saying? Kahil Gabram said it in The Prophet. If you're not happy with your job, stand at the doorway and basically hold your hand out. So it's ancient knowledge to me. You know what I'm saying? But like I said, at one point when I was playing the open mics, one of the guys told me, and he would fly to Italy. I don't know why. I think maybe his family was, like his grandparents or something were from Italy. So he had developed this affinity, and he even took Italian in high school. And then at some point, I knew him. I was older, and he used to come into a coffee shop I worked at. And he took off for Italy and stayed there for like 6 months, a year and a half, even something like that, a real long time. and he was living there illegally, and he had roommates, and like he was sharing a room with four other illegals, um, and he had done that at by the last time I knew him, he was a bartender at a bar, and I would go to the bar and play open mics. And I saw him after I probably hadn't seen him in about 10, 15 years. So he was about 10, 15 years older, and he had been to Italy two or three times, three or four times, I don't even know, a couple times. And he stays for 6 months at a time, 8 months at a, as long as he can until he's absolutely can't stay anymore. And he gets lucky; he doesn't get caught by the police or deportation, because he usually flies there one way, and travel visas are only good for so long. But he stays as long as he can. He buys a bike, he gets roommates, he can speak enough Italian to get around. And he's one of these super subsistence guys. Like this guy lives on uh, maize, ground corn, millet. Like I asked him once, hey, do you drink milk? And he said, milk is cream, bro. Like, I understand what he means. You know what I'm saying? Milk is cream. But because he's like, I said, what? I one time, because, I was a cook. So I was telling him, oh, hey, like, what do you eat? Because he was a bartender, and he worked at a cool little bar. I mean, they made enough money to pay rent downtown. You know what I'm saying? So, I was like, hey, what do you eat? You know what I'm saying? And he was telling me, and I was like, that's basic subsistence, bro. Like, you basically have to go to ethnic markets, and you're just buying grain and rice, Or, like I said, he shops at the Mexican market, so he buys cornmeal, and I don't know where he gets his millet from, but he gets it, and he like, half the things that he told me he eats are what deer eat, you know what I'm saying? And I was like, bro, like you are a subsistence, like if shit really did, get down to it, you could actually go out and just start picking off weeds and branches and living on land. He's lived like that for a long time, so I mean, he has the money to eat, whatever he wants, but he like I said, basic, he says it, man. He says, look, I eat cornmeal two, three times a day, oatmeal, stuff like that. And every couple of years, I get to go back to Italy for 6, 8 months a year. You know what I'm saying? Living in some, Florence or something, like some nice place. He lives in nice places. And, like I said, he took Italian in high school. He's lived there a couple of years. He gets around. He has roommates. And now with the internet, I mean, that's even more possible. So that's what he does. I mean, he tells me like I eat 50 cents worth of millet, and 25 cents worth of this, and he gets by. His body gets by. Looked fine to me. I mean, he looked healthy. And but yeah, one of the few people in San Bernardino that I had known both before and after my mental breakdown, schizophrenia, or what schizoaffective, you know what I'm saying. But after the initial hospitalization, I had known him just before that because he came to the cafe I used to work at. And then, like I said, I met him about 15 years later. So, those two are steps in our lives. I mean, it's not always that, around every corner is going to be the woman that you marry and have kids with, or, the woman that, you die in bed having sex with, of a heart attack. It's not always going to be the final woman of your life is the one that you're going to come around the corner. It might just be an old friend or someone that you spend the next 2 years, having the best time with, and then they get a job in another city, and then you never see them again. I mean, that's life, you know what I'm saying? It's happened to me. What can I say? I remember particularly when I was younger in my 20s, I lived at my mom's and dad's house After a while, I just moved back in with my parents because I had jobs that could pay the rent, and then I'd lose the job, or I had a job and then I lost my truck, or I lost my van. And I'm like, man, I mean, it's like these other guys that I were living with in the college town were all taking out student loans, and some of their parents were helping them financially. I was just trying to get by, and it was a university town, so it was very nice and expensive. You know what I'm saying? There weren't too many shabby, rundown cabins, and I mean, there were a lot of wooden houses in this town, and we lived in one of the worst, but it was still nice. And like I said, rent was expensive, and I ended up back here living with my parents. And like I said, I'd go out with people, still like I'd started community college in my 20s, so I was running behind. These people I knew had either already graduated, or they were going to get their masters, and these were the people I knew. And like I said, uh, at that time, that's what life had to offer. And what I understand out of life is that things change. I mean, they're in my life. I can't say for everybody, because some people, they did marry their high school sweetheart. They have had the same friends for 30 years. I've also known people like that. But in my life, things change. So that's why, like I say, I go by easy as the breeze. You know what I'm saying? Um, it's for me to even be here, for us to come together, for me and somebody to meet twice. You know what I'm saying? I mean, yes, I understand. Ooh, of course you're going to meet people again and again. Man, yes, I understand. You know what I'm saying? But to meet certain people, how many times do you meet that one person in a lifetime? 4, 5? Do you ever talk to them? Or do you just stand on your side of the street looking dumb? You're like, oh, next time, next time. Next time never comes. So that's the thing. But what was that about? Just to let you know, hey, there's a little prettiness to life. There's a little giddiness to life. There's a little nervous, excitement to life. And there's suffering. And like I said, I think I suffer because I want certain things. And I'll continue to suffer until I either get them, or I simply decide that it's not worth suffering for anymore. But I don't, but if you can take a step back in your life from your actions and realize that you don't have to follow your mind. It may break. Mine did. You know what I'm saying? But you don't have to follow your mind. If your mind is leading you down a path you don't want to go, you can stop that and still live. You don't have to follow your mind. You have to fight it. You have to beat it. Like I said, you have to bond it into submission to you. Don't be a slave to it for the rest of your life, forever hating everything, and everything is ugly and worthless because you don't like yourself. I mean, oh, I have these habits. I think this way. I want this out of life, and I can't get it, so I'm just going to hate everything. I mean, I have those moments. But like I said, life is a struggle. Maybe I will get half of what I ever wanted, and I'll be twice as happy. You know what I'm saying? I don't even know how it works out in the end. Like I said, there was a time when I used to starve, and there was a time when I had enough money to take a Hungarian girl out for whatever. You know what I'm saying? In one lifetime. So the continual evolution of the East Coast beat. Remember, in when it comes down to it, try to take a step back from your life every now and then, particularly during the very emotional moments, and just realize that this is your life and you can change it at that moment. You know, you can, hey, if I mean, if I don't dig the way this is going, I can stop it. Or, if nothing else, you just took time to realize, hey, this is my life and this is what I do with it. You know, the continual evolution of the East Coast beat.